Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm going to film my top 10 list for the games that I would like to play at Dice Tower West, which is happening next week. I'll be there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday just for the weekend pass. And there are some games I'm already scheduled to play and others that I'm just hoping to play. So if you're curious to see what my top 10 most anticipated games that I would like to play are, stay tuned. Well, as I said, I've already scheduled to play a few games, and some of them are new to me, some of them not new to me. This is one that isn't even scheduled to come out till 2024, but I did, and I was able to get connected into one of the games where they're doing a demo of the new version of Trailblazer. I actually backed the original Trailblazer, the John Muir Trail, and I'm excited to receive that hopefully pretty soon. But this game is by Dan Rice with art by Andrew Bosley, and Mariposa Games is the publisher. They're going to be showing their newer one that's coming out later, probably on Kickstarter. I don't know. I'll find out at Dice Tower West. But I was able to sign up for one of the demo games, and so I'm excited to see it. It's a resource management collection game. There's in-game bonuses, pattern building, point-to-point movement, set collection, and you play 8 rounds of travel. You're trying to gain both natural and personal resources to reach the end of the trail or get as far as you can along that trail in 8 turns. So I'm excited to learn more about that game and play that. I think I'm scheduled to play that on Saturday morning, if I'm not mistaken. Another game, I don't know if I'll have a chance to play it, but it's one that if there's someone there with the demo copy or a preview copy, I'd love to try it. And it's Empire's Inn, a John D. Clare game with art by Kwanchai Moria. Brotherwise Games is the publisher. And this game looks really interesting to me. I almost backed it on Kickstarter GameFound. I forget which crowdfunding profile or program it was on. But you start out, everybody starts out with a civilization, these cards that they're showing here in this picture, and they are going to be destroyed, like you can see these down here. And every time a disaster comes along, you're going to be bidding for whether you put resources on the card to say, hey, I'm going to pay to not take this damage. And then eventually someone is going to take that damage, and when they do, they get an innovation into their empire. And so you're trying to kind of maybe even trick people into putting resources on there so you can take an innovation that you actually really want. Maybe a little bit of bluffing. Maybe you really don't want it and you're just willing to pay whatever you can to not take it. But you're trying to see who has the best empire over a certain number of rounds, I believe. And I really love the art. I like this idea of almost like preventing destruction of your civilization. So instead of building it up, you're just trying to survive through all of these different events that come along. So I'm excited to try that. I kind of doubt that there will be any opportunity to play that at Dice Tower West, but if someone happens to have a preview copy or if there's a demo going on, I haven't seen anything on the website, but if there is, I'd love to give this one a try. So it's just a hopeful. And then another one, again, I doubt if it'll be there, but I've seen a lot of people with preview copies playing it, and it's Rebuilding Seattle by Quinn Brander and published by Wiz Kids. When I heard the title, I was just kind of drawn in because my kids live up in Seattle, or some of my kids do. And we love going up and visiting them, and this is a tile placement game. There's these tracks where you're managing your resource and you're rebuilding Seattle after the fires that occurred. And so it's got a little bit of touch of history. It's got that tile placement. There's, I think, end game goals that you're trying to achieve. And like I said, those tracks where you're maintaining the quality of your community as you rebuild it. So looks really interesting. The components look really cool. Again, I don't know if this is going to even be available because it's not out yet. But so those first 3 games aren't part of my top 10. They're just sort of honorable mentions, if you will, of one that I know that's coming that I will get a chance to play, and 2 that will be coming in the future that I hope to get a chance to play. Now, the other 10 are actually games that are out. They are published. I hope they'll be in the library or someone else will have them there so that I can get a chance to try them out. Number 10 is Sabika. Sabika is by German Millen. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, from Ludonova Games. And this is about the Nasrid dynasty, which built up the Alhambra. And it's got several rondels that connect. And I just really think it would be fun to try a game. I haven't played a ton of rondel games, a few, but I would like to see how these, I think it's 3 different rondels interact in this Euro-style game. I think the art's really cool and the theme sounds interesting. And just that interconnectedness of the different rondels is something I'm really curious to try. I don't know too much about the game, but it is probably nothing like the game Alhambra, but I like the game Alhambra, so that caught my attention. And I love the art of this game, and the components look terrific. So I'd really like to try Sabika. It looks gorgeous, and it looks like a very interesting Euro-style game that I typically like. So Sabika is my number 10. Number 9 is Monolith. It's a Phil Walker Harding game by Simon, which is an interesting combination. And in this one, it's a 3D polyomino game. So there's open drafting and pattern building, and it's on 3 dimensions. So we can look at a couple pictures here to see. So you see these 3-dimensional monoliths that you're trying to build. And depending on the number of player counts, you're trying to build 4x4x3 or 4x4x4. And you're drafting these different pieces to slowly build up your monolith. It looks like an interesting 3D puzzle. So I'm excited to try this one if someone has a copy there, if it's in the library. That is Monolith, my number 9. Number 8 is Turing Machine by Fabian Gradel and Johan Levitt. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Le Scorpion Mosque is the publisher. And this game is one that's based on the old punch card computer systems, which sounds really interesting. You are trying to kind of like a beefed up or a souped up Mastermind, if you know that game from old days, that deduction game where you're trying to guess in that game a color sequence. Here you're trying to guess a number sequence, but you take a guess and then you take these punch out cards and cover up your guess, and it gives you hints about what's right, what's wrong. Is the number that you pick too high, too low? And you just keep kind of narrowing it down and narrowing it down. It's a competitive game to see who can narrow down the proper 3-digit code, I think it is. There are 7 million different combinations, according to what they're saying here. And it doesn't at first glance look like a game that I would be just thrilled to play, but I've heard so many people, especially the Brothers Murph, talking about how much they love it, that I'm excited to try it if it's available and I get a chance to. So that is Turing Machine, my number 8. Number 7 is Federation. And I didn't really know too much about this game until people started putting out their best games of 2022 videos. And several people mentioned this Federation game. I thought, I need to check that out. It's by Dimitri Perrier and Mathieu Verdier. And so it's published by Explore 8. And this is kind of a Euro game that has almost like a 4X look to it. And you're playing through a certain number of rounds. You're trying to build up your station, I think it is, part of a federation. An interactive Euro game with innovative double-sided worker placement mechanism. That sounds really interesting. Area control, in-game bonuses. There's a voting mechanism. You're voting on different political stances that are going to, I think, affect the next rounds of the game. And it's got worker placement with different worker types. It really looks beautiful. The components kind of remind me of Eagle Griffin style quality. And there's a few companies now that are really putting out that high quality type of material. I don't know very much about the gameplay, but I like Euro games. I've heard several people that I really respect their opinions talking about how much this game surprised them and how much they've enjoyed it. So if I get a chance to play Federation while I'm there, I'd really love to. So that is my number 7. Number 6 is Revive. Helga Meissner, Eilif Svensson, Anna Wormland, Christian Amundsen Oostby, maybe, I'm not sure how to pronounce that exactly, at Porta Games. And this is one that I've had some excitement about for a while. When it first came out, everyone was talking about it, a Euro game with asymmetric powers, variable setup, and you in this game are trying to revive a civilization 5,000 years after it was destroyed. It's got deck bag pool building, it's got a campaign scenario that sort of teaches you the game, it's got tech trees. And basically on your turn, you're going to take 2 actions. Play a card, explore, populate, or build a factory. And I've heard a lot of people talk about a few things. The cons I've heard is that the campaign is kind of silly. It doesn't necessarily really teach you the game, and you just want to kind of skip it. I don't know. I've played a few games. I've heard people say that, and I thought actually for me the campaign was nice. I enjoyed kind of easing my way into it. I've heard a couple people complain that the game just takes too long. And sometimes that can make it hard to want to get to the table. But the theme sounds interesting, the art looks beautiful, and the Euro style game that they keep talking about, that keeps people wanting to keep talking about it, impresses me. It's a little lower on my list here just because I believe one of my friends already ordered it, and so we probably will have a chance to play it at a game night soon. And so I'm not as urgently wanting to necessarily play it during Dice Tower West, but if there's someone teaching it, I think that would be worth just jumping in because I've had my eye on this one for a while and would love to give it a try. That is Revive, my number 6. Now onto my top 5, and the next, number 5 is 2 games. I'm cheating. So there's always more than 10 in my top 10 lists if you've watched my channel. So this is by designer Tatsuka Chuo, and the reason there's 2 here is because they're by the same designer, and it's from the publisher Uchi Bakoya. Hope that's close to right. But a friend of mine online, Evan from the channel eVanDiesel, you should check out his channel. He's always talking about these two games as some of his favorites. And I almost backed Ostia. It's a Mancala style Euro game, which I like Mancala games like Five Tribes. This one has that mechanism where you're going to choose a region and you're going to take the resources based on how many ships are in that region, and then you're going to Mancala style drop them around the ring, and where you end up, you're going to take the action of that region. So kind of an interesting resources at the beginning of your turn, action at the end of your turn. It has really nice quality components. Now these may be Kickstarter components, which may or may not be available in the copies that are at the Dice Tower West. I don't know. But it sounds really interesting. It looks really beautiful. The Mancala type of game is something that I've always enjoyed. And so I'd love to try this one, Ostia. Hopefully it's available. And then by the same creator and same publisher, and also recommended by Evan, Aqua Garden, a little bit older. It's a 2021 game, but it's also not super easy to find. So this is a game that lasts in rounds, and you are trying to use a single employee to basically stock the best aquarium in town. But there's limitations to how you do that. When you stock the fish, you have to make sure there's enough oxygen in the tank, and you can only stock the tanks that are adjacent to your workers. So there's some limitations in how that fits together. So it sounds like a really interesting Euro-style puzzle. And the little fish and aquatic meeples look really cool. Also, you have to be careful about which animals you put in which tanks, because you can't have sharks with certain fish because they'll just eat them. And so you have to kind of think about quite a few different little pattern type things here. Again, I don't know if this will be in the library because it's hard to find from what I've heard. And as I was looking to buy it, it's really expensive, I think, because there just aren't that many copies out. And I didn't really know about this game when it came out on Kickstarter, but I would love to give it a shot. So Ostia and Aqua Garden by Tatsuka Chuo are two that I would love to try. They're my number 5, so cheating a little bit there. Number 4, I think it's pronounced Atiwa or Etowa, and it's by Uwe Rosenberg from Lookout Games. And this one appeals to me for a couple reasons. Uwe's games are always kind of hit or miss for me. Most of his lighter games I've enjoyed, and most of his heavier games have just been okay for me. I haven't really come across a game I didn't like at all, but they're kind of okay or good. I haven't found any that I absolutely love, but I also haven't found any that I hate either. This one sounds like, because of its kind of connection to environment and education and science, that it might appeal to me more. It's a different kind of farming game, I guess. And so that educational aspect of using the fruit bats to try to improve the farming, and how he's tying in that educational information, even wrote some sort of a book, I guess, explaining his research into the theme. And I just think it looks like it would be a fun Uwe-style Euro game where you're farming, but with a twist, trying to capitalize on the bats and how they help you. It also appealed to me because when we lived in Indonesia, we always would drive through from Central to East Java through this one little community. And we seemed like we almost always ended there at dusk when the fruit bats were coming out. And one of the freakiest and coolest things I've ever seen is watching hundreds of these giant fruit bats flying overhead, making no sound. It was just eerie. And so I look at this game and I have flashbacks of those visuals of watching those fruit bats. And the Euro style game, I'm always happy to give Uwe games a try. Some, like I said, have been better than others for me, but this one, I think, with the theme, is something that I'm even more excited to try. So it rises all the way to number 4. Number 3 is Acropolis, Jules Massaud by Gigamic Games. And this is one that's a 3-dimensional tile laying game. And I really tend to like tile laying, pattern building games. This one has some in-game bonuses, and the different kinds of tiles allow you to build up vertically. And you're trying to keep the different colors together, I think, as much as you can, but you're also trying to build up, and the way you score is going to depend on the colors of the tiles and how you cluster them. And then, like I said, the in-game scoring. So the fact that it's a tile laying game that advances to the sort of 3D level appeals to me, as I tend to, like I said, enjoy pattern building tile laying. So I'm curious to see how that 3-dimension aspect will play out. Really hoping to try this one, Acropolis, and it is all the way up at my number 3 game. My number 2 game is the Guild of Merchant Explorers, and when I first heard about this game by Matthew Dunson and Brett Gilbert from AEG, The cover didn't inspire me, the title didn't inspire me, but so many people that have played this game have absolutely loved it, and people are calling it a flip and place game. It feels like it should have been a flip and write or roll and write style of game, but instead of writing, you're placing these cubes down, and you're trying to create these chains out from where you start to different islands, because at the end of every round, your explorers disappear and only your cities stay. And so an interesting twist on that. And it says, I guess there's a variety of different maps that come with it, so you have some replayability to it. So this one, I don't think anyone in our game group has it or has really looked into buying it. So I would love to get a chance to try this one and see what all the excitement's about. I tend to like roll and write games, and since this feels so, or flip and write, those kind of games. So since people keep talking about how much this feels like that, but is a little bit more satisfying with the tactile experience of putting out the cubes. And there was a lot of fear about, would you knock the table and move these cubes all over? And so far everyone said it really didn't seem to impact them at all. So it isn't necessarily one of the most beautiful looker games, but it's also not too unattractive. It's got some color to it and some pop to it with some of the little structures. So I'm excited to try the Guild of Merchant Explorers. It's number 2 on my list. And the number 1 game is Orichalcum. This is a Bruno Cathala Johannes Guppy game from Catch Up Games. And I tend to like Bruno Cathala games. This one has action drafting, dice rolling. It's a race with a sudden death ending and tile placement. I think it plays pretty quick and it's easier to learn. So this kind of, I think, will fit nicely. There's so many things I want to do at Dice Tower West. I know I won't get them all done. I know there's no way I'm going to play all 10 of these games, but they're kind of ranked. So if I could play this one, it's shorter. I think I could squeeze it into some of those windows between other things I've already signed up for, and hopefully it'll be available and not always checked out. But it sounds like from the different descriptions I've heard that it would be right up my alley. Again, it's got this interesting kind of Greek god theme, ancient Greece theme, and the Orichalcum, I guess, was a Greek mythological metal that had supernatural powers. And so you're battling monsters, you're trying to build these patterns out. There's a drafting system, I think, in terms of how you take the tiles. And so I think because it plays quick and it's pretty easy to learn, and it's by Bruno Cathala, it's got, a lot of things there that make it appealing to one that I might want to add to my collection eventually, because I like that style of game to introduce friends and students to that maybe don't have a chance to play a lot of the newer, more modern board games. I think this could be one where if they've played some games and have some experience, this might be one where, wow, this is so beautiful, this is so unique and so different from what I'm used to playing. So I'm excited to try Orichalcum. It's number 1 on my list. So there you have it. Those are a few games I already know that I'm going to play, and some other games that are hopeful because I don't even know if they're going to be there. And then my top 10 of ones I expect will probably be there in the library, and if not in the library, most of them, maybe a few might just be present with other people teaching and playing them, or in some of the vendor stations there where I might be able to get a demo of some of them. So if you're going to Dice Tower West, look me up. I'll be there. I'll probably be wearing a Dodgers hat almost everywhere I go. And I'd love to meet you in person if you happen to be there at the Dice Tower West. If you want to sit down and play a game, especially if you know any of these games and you want to teach it to me, that'd be terrific. I'd love that. But I'm very excited to go to Dice Tower West. It's kind of my first official convention. I went to the World Series of Board Gaming, which even the coordinators of the event said it's not a convention, it's an event. And so it felt like a convention adjacent event. But this one being more of a true convention, I'm excited to go to for my first one. And it's just up the road here at Vegas, going with some of my friends that are part of our gaming group. Really excited about that. So if you're going, or if you're going to another convention this year, what are some games you're hoping to play to at those convention settings? Or if you've played any of the games that I listed in my top 10, tell me what I have to look forward to if I have the chance to play them. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy Indiana, signing off.